Nintendo tried to take down Palworld, but now the courts are starting to push back. And the wild part about this whole situation is that Nintendo didn't sue Palworld for copyright. They sued them over patents. And that decision might end up being the biggest problem for Nintendo in this entire case. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Nufftingz Speaks with your host, Nufftingz. Today we're talking about the Nintendo vs. Palworld lawsuit. What Nintendo is actually claiming in court, what Palworld developers are saying in response, and why some of the patents involved in this case are already being challenged. Because when this whole thing started, a lot of people thought Nintendo was just going to crush Palworld immediately. But now, things are getting a lot more complicated. Before we talk about the lawsuit, we need to talk about what Palworld actually is. Palworld is a game developed by a company called Pocket Pair. It released in January 2024 on PC and Xbox. And the moment it came out, it exploded. Within days, the game had millions of players, huge streaming numbers, massive attention across gaming communities. At one point, it had over 2 million concurrent players on Steam, which made it one of the most played games in history. Well, in Steam history. And the game sold millions of copies in a very short time. But Palworld also caused a lot of controversy, because many people immediately started calling it Pokémon with guns. In Palworld, players capture creatures called pals. These creatures can fight enemies, work in factories, help with crafting, help with farming, be used as mounts, be used in combat. And yes, some of them can even use guns. So naturally, the comparison to Pokémon started immediately. When Palworld launched, people were expecting Nintendo to respond very quickly. Because Nintendo has a reputation for protecting its intellectual property very aggressively. Nintendo has gone after ROM sites, modders, fan projects, emulator developers, small companies using Nintendo's assets. So people assumed that Palworld would get hit with a lawsuit almost instantly. But that didn't happen. Nintendo stayed silent for months. Then, in September 2024, Nintendo and the Pokémon Company officially announced they were suing Pocket Pair. The lawsuit was filed in Japan. But the reason for the lawsuit surprised a lot of people. Because Nintendo did not sue Palworld for copyright infringement. Instead, they sued them for patent infringement. And this is where things get interesting. Why Nintendo can't use copyright? Copyright protects things like characters, art design, music, and story elements. But gameplay mechanics usually cannot be copyrighted. For example, you cannot copyright the idea of jumping in a platform game, leveling up, crafting systems, capturing creatures. These are considered general game mechanics. And many different games can use similar mechanics. So instead of copyright, Nintendo used patents. A patent protects a specific system or method used in technology or software. Nintendo claims that Palworld is infringing on certain Pokemon-related patents involving mechanics like capturing creatures with an object, summoning creatures to fight, riding creatures for travel, deploying creatures in combat. The argument is that Palworld uses systems that are too similar to Pokemon gameplay mechanics. For example, in Pokemon you throw a Pokeball to capture creatures. In Palworld you throw a Palsphere to capture creatures. Nintendo argues that this mechanic overlaps with their patented systems. Sorry, I messed up there, I couldn't even say it. The reason this lawsuit is controversial is because many people in the gaming industry believe that these mechanics are not unique to Pokemon. Gamers have used similar mechanics for years. For example, monsters capturing systems, creature companions, riding animals, summoning allies have appeared in many games long before Palworld. And this is where the legal battle becomes complicated. Because if the patents are too broad, they may not be enforceable. So, Pocket Parrot, the developer of Palworld, has said that they are taking the lawsuit seriously. But they also argue that many of the mechanics Nintendo is claiming are not original inventions. Their argument is basically, these systems already existed in gaming before, and because of that, the patents might not be valid. Even though the case is still ongoing, the developers of Palworld have already made some changes to the game. Some mechanics were adjusted or modified to avoid potential legal issues. For example, some creature movements mechanics were changed. Some interaction systems were adjusted. Certain gameplay features were altered. These changes were done as a precaution while the lawsuit continues. Now here is where the story gets even more interesting. Some patent offices reviewing Nintendo's claims have started to push back. Officials reviewing certain patents have argued that some mechanics may not meet the requirement of inventive step. In simple terms, that means the system may not be original enough to deserve a patent. Reviewers pointed to older games that use similar ideas. Examples include games that already had creature companions, monster capturing, summoning allies, mountable creatures. This weakens the argument that Nintendo invented the entire concept. The lawsuit is bigger than just Nintendo and Palworld, because if companies are allowed to patent broad gameplay mechanics, it could affect the entire gaming industry. Imagine if companies started patenting things like crafting system, open world exploration, companion creatures, skill trees. Game development could become extremely restricted. Many developers worry that cases like this could set dangerous legal precedents. At the same time, Nintendo also has reasons to protect their brand. Pokémon is one of the biggest media franchises in the world, and Nintendo wants to make sure that no other games become confused with their brand identity. From Nintendo's perspective, Palworld's similarities may be seen as a threat to the Pokémon brand. So the lawsuit is also about brand protection. As of now, the lawsuit is still ongoing. Nintendo still has options to defend their patents, modify their claims, appeal decisions, and Palworld continues to operate while the legal process continues. So this story is far from over. This case is fascinating because it sits right at the intersection of gaming, intellectual property, game design, and legal strategy. And no matter how it ends, it will probably influence how game mechanics are protected in the future. Because if patents like this are enforced broadly, it could change how games are developed across the industry. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Nintendo is justified in protecting Pokémon mechanics? Or do you think systems are too common in gaming to belong to any one company? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.
Another late night chasing down the light for the grind that Nufftingz has to fight against the voice